The last few videos have been about pre-writing. Now we're going to get started with the actual writing of our essay. The first paragraph of your essay will be the introduction paragraph. The introduction paragraph is broken down into three parts. The first part is the hook, second background information, and third thesis statement. Your book looks at several examples of a hook. A hook is something that gets the attention of the reader. It has to be something that's interesting or funny, maybe something shocking or sad, embarrassing, something that makes a reader want to read more. There are several different ways that we can do this. One is to present an interesting fact or statistic. Another one is to tell an anecdote. An anecdote is like a short story. The third method is to ask a question, some type of thought-provoking question. The fourth is to set the scene, which means is to describe what is happening there. The fifth is to have a quote. Let's go ahead and look at these 5 styles a little closer. So something like an interesting fact or statistic should get the attention of the reader. If you just say Japan has a lot of earthquakes, most people kind of know that. It's not going to really get my attention. But if you say something like, according to Life Science, Japan has over 1,500 earthquakes every year. Now, to me, that's a little shocking. I might want to read more about why do they have so many earthquakes. People love hearing stories of other people, and that's why anecdotes work very well as a hook. Whether it's a personal story about your life or a story of a famous person, maybe a story we don't know very well, but something that helped shape their life. Both of these methods will work very well as a hook in your paper. Questions are a great way to get someone's attention. However, they're probably misused many times. You still need something that's thought-provoking. So if you ask the question, do you have a hobby? John Jones had a hobby. This really isn't very thought-provoking. However, if you pose the question, have you ever started a hobby just for fun, and then later the hobby changed your life? That's exactly what happened to John Jones. So now I know the story is about how he started as a baseball player, and then later now became a professional baseball player. This is a little more interesting for me. The next type of hook is setting the scene. Now, we don't probably do this one very often in academic writing, but journalists might do this. For example, they might set the scene, they might tell you in a war-torn country what the buildings look like, the people crying, the suffering, the death around them. They're trying to make you visualize what it's like in that place and that time. Quotes are another way to get people's attention. We usually use quotes from someone famous, and again, just like everything else, it should be something that is kind of thought-provoking and interesting about your topic. Okay, so we finished talking about different types of hooks. Now let's go ahead and talk about the background information. The background information is a bridge from the hook to the thesis statement. For this class, it'll probably just be a few sentences. Basically, it's just general information to help us understand the thesis of your paper. You can kind of think of it kind of like a longer introduction sentence. There's not a lot of facts and statistics in the background information. Again, the whole purpose is to just make a bridge from the hook directly into your thesis statement. The example introduction I'm going to be using in this video is from Great Essays. This is the example that we're going to use for this class. You have your hook up top, the background information is written in blue, and then your thesis statement is written at the bottom. Let's go ahead and look at this in a little more detail. Now, I know we haven't talked about thesis statements yet, but the thesis statement is the most important sentence of your whole paper. It is what the paper is based on. Everything in your paper is there to support your thesis statement. But we will talk about this a little more a little later. But let's go ahead and look back up at the top of the hook. The hook states that lung cancer kills more people in 1 year than all criminal and accidental deaths combined. At the bottom, you have your thesis statement. By eating better, exercising regularly, and staying out of the sun, people can reduce their risk of cancer. Now, the background information, the big blank in the middle, that is there to link the hook into the thesis statement. Is to give general information about your topic and introduce your thesis statement. Let's look at the first sentence of the background information. Again, the hook says lung cancer kills more people in 1 year than all criminal and accidental deaths combined. Now, the first sentence of the background information. This statistic is shocking, but the good news is that people are now well informed about the risks connected to lung cancer. Now, if you look here, the focus is on the hook and people being informed, right? People know about lung cancer. Now let's go ahead and look at the second sentence of the background information. Here it says, they know that the risk of contracting this terrible disease decreases if they either stop smoking or do not smoke at all. Now here it says that people know how to prevent lung cancer. Just don't smoke. The third sentence in the background information states, unfortunately, the same cannot be said about other types of cancer. Now, this is where the transformation starts to happen. The hook is about lung cancer. The first two sentences in the background information are kind of about lung cancer and people's knowledge about lung cancer. Now, this third sentence is starting to shift. Now it stops talking about lung cancer. Now it's talking about other types of cancer and lack of knowledge. The fourth sentence states that many people are not aware that their everyday behavior can lead to the development of different forms of cancer. Now it switched all the way from lung cancer, people having knowledge of lung cancer, to people not having so much knowledge about other cancers, to everyday behavior can lead to different forms of cancer. Now this would lead directly into the thesis. It says here, again, background information, many people are not aware that their everyday behavior can lead to the development of different forms of cancer. So everyday behavior, different forms of cancer. Let's look at the thesis. By eating better, exercising regularly, and staying out of the sun, people can reduce their risk of cancer. So now let's look at it all together. We have your hook, talking about lung cancer, the background information, which talks about, at first, it talks about lung cancer, it talks about people's knowledge of lung cancer, then it talks about how many people don't know about other cancers, and then it talks about how people don't know that their everyday behavior can lead to the development of different cancers. It leads right into our thesis. The thesis has 3 ways to reduce or form of cancer. One is by eating better, the second is by exercising regularly, and the third is staying out of the sun. If you do these 3 things, you can actually reduce the risk of cancer. These are everyday behaviors that can help you. Again, the background information, when you look at it, there's not a lot of crazy facts or statistics or anything like that. It's just very basic information that leads directly into the thesis. Now let's go ahead and look at the most important sentence of your entire paper. This is called your thesis statement. Your thesis statement should only be 1 sentence. Now it can be a very complex sentence, however it should only be 1 sentence. The thesis statement, when I read that statement, I should understand the focus of your entire paper. I should understand the purpose and direction of your paper. Now there are 2 types of thesis statements we're going to look at. We're going to look at a direct thesis and an indirect thesis. The direct thesis is kind of like a topic sentence before your whole essay, in that it clearly states the topic and focus of your essay, kind of like the topic sentence has the topic and controlling idea. The thesis controls the whole essay. Now, what makes it a direct thesis is that a direct thesis gives the 3 main subtopics you'll write about in the body. So actually, in that 1 sentence, your thesis statement, you present subtopic 1, subtopic 2, and subtopic 3. Just like a direct thesis, an indirect thesis is very similar to a topic sentence because basically it states a topic and the controlling idea for your whole paper. Now, the only difference between an indirect and a direct thesis is an indirect thesis does not state the 3 main ideas that you're going to present in your paper. So it's more like the topic sentences that we're kind of talking about before in class. There are a few questions all writers should ask themselves. The first question is, why am I writing about this? Am I trying to inform someone of something? Am I trying to persuade someone of something? Another question is it very interesting? Is the information I'm giving interesting and informative? Do they already know this information? Is it something too difficult for them to understand? Is it the correct information for my audience? And the last thing, is my purpose clear? I might have a purpose in my mind, but am I putting that purpose clearly on paper also?